As you write your new stuff, have you ever cribbed from previous scripts? You know, the ones that haven't been produced? Are there
my scripts.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not accusing you of plagiarism. That's for later.
Oh, right, okay.
No, it's your own scripts. Do you ever, like, remember, that's a great idea. I haven't used it in this script, but I'm going to bring it back and then plug it into a new thing.
Yes. Absolutely. If there's a great scene or a great moment or a great line of dialogue that can work in
Is there one that you remember that made it into the produced work from the unproduced work?
I can't think off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is. I'm really sure there is.
I guess it kind of mixes in your consciousness, and when you need it, you go get it.
You pull it out, right? Yeah. Yeah, you just kind of keep that library, and if it doesn't get used.
Right.
I mean, the famous example is Eric Kasdan. If you look at Continental Divide and Rise of Lost Ark, it's the same love scene.
Yeah.
Actually produced in 2 films.
That's interesting.
If you see it in John
I love
Belushi.
Continental Divide.
Right, so you remember when he gets ripped up by the bear? And it's like, oh no, it hurts there, it hurts there. And well, where doesn't it hurt?
That's interesting. One's John Belushi and one is Harrison Ford, and you wouldn't think that they...
You wouldn't think, same
writer.
Same writer, same scene. Used it twice, nobody really noticed.
Right. Have you ever just hit an out-and-out roadblock in the writing of one of your scripts? You're like, my God, I'm never going to get through this, or I can't finish this.
No, that usually happens in the idea concept stage. Like I've got a bunch of concepts that I just don't know how to take to a story. They're roadblocks, but once I've gotten as far as writing the script, I know how to tell the story. I know what the story is, and so it's really just about working through finding the best way to tell that story. Is
there a weakness you have as a writer that you personally think, if I could just make this a little bit stronger or better?
Yeah.
That you try to work on?
Yeah, I mean, there are always weaknesses, and there are always things to improve on.
Right.
The moment that you think there are no weaknesses, well, that's a weakness. Thinking you have no weaknesses.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. There's always ways to do things better. Always, you always want to question everything. Well, I do anyway. Question everything I do and just say, is there a better way to do that? Can we look at that again?
Right.
Being willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know, you've got to have that mentality.
Right.
Or else I think you'll end up writing crap and your shit detector will go down and you end up, in lots of trouble. Are you
script doctoring much? Have you rewritten other people's screenplays?
Yeah, I've done a lot of rewriting other people.
Right.
I wouldn't call it script doctoring so much because I think that's more, we're in production, we're shooting, we haven't got a script, that kind of a thing. But yeah, because I enjoy just telling stories, and if I see that there's a script that is a great idea or a great story dying to come out of there and I know how to get it out of it, absolutely, I'll jump in and see what I can do.
Is rewriting more difficult than writing?
It's all the same. I think the hardest writing is original writing because it's really invention and you're starting from nothing. Rewriting or adapting, you've got something that you're starting from.
Right.
And you can decide whether to toss it, leave it, improve it, whatever. But at least it's something. Original, you're like, what happens next?
Right. Have you been rewritten?
Oh yeah. Well, Ted and Terry rewrote me on Pirates.
What was that process like? Like, how does that work? Who lets you know? Like,
they just call up and say, you know what? Jerry wants to bring in Ted and Terry.
Jerry Bruckheimer being the producer.
Jerry Bruckheimer, wants to bring in Ted and Terry, and nothing to do with you. You did great work.
Right.
But we just want to see what these guys can do. And it's.
Believe it or not, I've actually heard horror stories where writers have not even gotten that phone call.
Oh, I know. They read it in the trades, right?
Right. Or sometimes the other writer will call out of courtesy and just go, I'm working on this.
Yeah. I always make sure. I always ask if you told the writers this. And hopefully they're honest. Right. But I've talked with the people that I'm rewriting and all that kind of stuff and told them, this is what I'm going to do. This, I think you did great work, all that kind of stuff. This is where I would like to take it. I've done a lot of that. Because I think we all should be friends. We all should be working together. We shouldn't, being rewritten and rewriting is a part of the business, and as long as we all have the same goal of just trying to make the best movie, which I think is what we had on Pirates. Right. So, we were all like, we just want to make a good film. Don't let egos get in the way, do what you can, make the best film. I think it works. But a lot of time it's, well, if I can change this character's name, I might get credit. And then I might get a bonus, and I might get, it's all that crap, which I just hate. And I see a lot of it. So
was it hard to kind of let Pirates go and go into that next incarnation?
Yeah, well, it was hard, but at the same time, I made sure it wasn't the only thing I had going. Right. So it's.
So it's good to have.
That's why you can't just have one egg in your basket. You have lots, because if it is the one thing and that gets taken away from you and it's nothing to do with you, then you're left devastated. Right. But okay, they're doing Pirates. Hey, it looks like it's getting made. That's a great thing. Right. Maybe I'll get credit, maybe I won't. You win some, you lose some,
right.
you know, that kind of stuff. I've got 3 other things that I'm working on. I don't have time to, you know, worry about being rewritten.
So you're able to write on several projects simultaneously?
Yeah, I find it really good, actually. It allows me to get distance. You know, a week of just being away from a script is different to a week being away from it and writing a completely different script. You know, you get, it's like 3 weeks of just being away. You know, it's just more intense. So I find it just helps me, you know, focus and keep the shit detector working, you know, and get away from things. Absolutely.
You mentioned the shit detector a few times.
Yes.
Can you go into the workings of the shit detector?
The workings of the shit detector.
Yeah. What do you mean by that exactly? I think I know what you mean, but tell me what you mean.
I mean, reading a script that you've written that you think is phenomenal, you don't know what to do to make it better, and then you're getting some distance from it and coming back to it and going, that line is kind of cheesy. That moment's kind of cheesy. I'm just not selling this moment. It's being able to read it and not think, oh yes, this is just as great as I thought it was a week ago.
Well, I know a few people who could use your shit detector.
I think you got to have it, and that's what, you know, friends, people you trust are good for. They help you hone that shit detector and say, you know, it's cheesy, and you can say, well, no, it's not. And 3 people say it, and you go, well, maybe it is.
So you think it's very important to maintain an objective eye about your work as much as you can?
As much as you possibly can, absolutely. And the second you start falling in love with your writing and thinking it's the greatest thing since Shakespeare, that you're in trouble. Absolutely. You got to think this is crap, and I'm lucky to do it, and I'm fooling them all. You know, but just do the best thing I can. And I always, you know, deliver the best thing I can. By the time I deliver something, it's always, I don't know what else to do. But I'm literally just at that point where I've done everything I possibly know how to do. It's not because I, you know, think it's all great.
Now, working with Michael Mann, who is one of these kind of signature filmmakers of our time, was that a different process than the usual filmmaking process?
Yeah, well, Michael has a lot of control, you know, so it was one of those unique moments, and, you know, Tom is such, you know, a big power star that we really had such little interference from the studio.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, yeah. We had such
Lest someone think it was Tom Arnold or something.
Sorry, yeah. We had such little interference, you know. It was a really interesting process in seeing a big film get made with just the filmmakers doing it. It was really quite interesting. So yeah, they just let us go, let Michael do his thing. You know, I mean, it's any writer's dream to have these great filmmakers, great actors, you know, transpose their screenplays. I mean, that's what you want. I wonder how Michael Mann would do that. Well, I got to see it. You know, how great is that? Now I've learned so much just in seeing that script that I wrote, that I lived with for so long, you know, put onto screen by such a great filmmaker and such great actors, that it teaches you endlessly.
Did you end up working with Cruise much on the dialogue and the character?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it didn't change much. It really didn't. He was very respectful to the script. Michael was very respectful. They really didn't mess with the dialogue that much.
Well, there was an intelligence to the original screenplay that is representative in both their bodies of work in terms of gravitating towards that kind of material.
Yeah. I remember the first time I met with Michael, he's like, you know, I've tried messing around with the script, changing scenes and stuff, and it all falls apart. And I was like, yes, please don't do that.
Please don't do that.
So,
now, having lived with Collateral for all those years, what was it like to step on the set and see your words being executed by Michael Mann and Tom Cruise?
Cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. You know, I wouldn't have shot it that way, Michael. I would have done it. No,
Did you have to sit on your impulse to kind of direct from the back seat?
Yeah, Tom, a little more, more. No, it was phenomenal. I remember watching the first time I saw Tom. It was actually the nightclub scene. That was the first day I went to the set, and Tom just had this look on his face. He was just fucking gonna kill you. And I've seen that look 1,000 times in his films, but it's always the righteous intensity look. And you wronged me, and I'm right. But this time it was like, I don't care who you fucking are, I'm going to kill you just because it's my job. You know, and I remember it was scary. And, you know, the look of it, and, you know, I was watching the monitors and everything, and it was just, it was incredibly exciting. And then about 10 minutes later, it was incredibly boring.
Boring why? Because
boring because we got the same shot again and again and again.
So just the routine of filmmaking, even on that set.
Even on that set, yeah. You watch it, you know, the 10th time, you're like, you know. But then, you know, I was on the set of Derailed a lot. And, you know, there were scenes there that they would shoot a bunch of times. And I remember there was one line of dialogue that the studio had made me put in that I hated. And I hated every delivery of it. And then the last take they did, the actress Jennifer Aniston just said it in a way that it was just amazing and completely changed the whole thing. And I remember saying to her afterwards, like, that was just brilliant. That was just, just to see it, and that's exciting. Right. Certainly the first time you see a take, you see a set, you see a character in costume, all that kind of stuff. But after 10 takes, you kind of like,
right, let's get on with it.
Let's get on with it, yeah.
Did you have to receive a lot of notes along the way on that project, or how do you deal with
which one?
Collateral.
Collateral?
Did you get a lot of notes from executives and stuff?
Yeah, for the time we were developing it, yeah. I mean, I basically developed it for 6 months at DreamWorks, and then it just sat on the shelf, and I did nothing else to it for 3 years, and then they shot it.
Right. How do you deal with receiving notes? Is it?
It's certainly an art form in itself.
Right.
It's a whole different side of the business, a whole different part of screenwriting. You've got to be able to listen to notes, good and bad,
right.
And if you can, react to the bad ones in the room, not negatively, not say that's stupid, who let you in,
right.
But say that's interesting, but kind of be able to recognize that that's going to be a problem when you get down to writing it. And the more and more I've done these kind of films and sat in these kinds of meetings, I've been able to see right away, oh, hang on, that's going to be a problem.
Right.
And it's much better to kill it in the room and come up with it in the room rather than to say, okay, let me look at that, and then 2 months later, call them and say, it's just not working for this, and this reason. They can't remember the meeting.
Right.
But if you can kill it in the room, that's usually the best way that I find to deal with those kinds of notes.
Has your approach to notes kind of evolved over the course of your career?
Absolutely, yeah. And you learn to recognize whose notes actually mean something and whose don't.
Right.
That kind of stuff. Who's got the power in the room, who doesn't. But again, through all this practice of being in these meetings and understanding story and how to convey those ideas. I remember communication, I think, is half the job.
Right.
Being able to communicate these ideas has really helped get through those notes and get me past bad notes and just focus on the good notes. A lot of the time, too, the executives actually don't know specifically what they want. It's like, give me not what I say, but what I want, and it's finding out what they want. So they'll say, I have a problem with this, and you'll go, well, you ask them about it, and you say, well, actually, that's not really your problem, it's this. And you help them identify their problem, and then you get the right fix. Had you gone and do that note, it wouldn't have fixed the problem, and they would have come back saying, it's still not working for me. Right. Sometimes they don't know, and it's really, really important.
So you look at it as kind of your job to infer what they are trying to get to.
To get the exact specifics. I'm going to do this on page 2, this on page 3, and then there can be no argument about it.
Right.
Again, it's trying to get those two people in the room to get as close as they can about the same movie. Right. Without seeing it on the screen.
Do you think there are certain pitfalls or rules to screenwriting that kind of you find carry over from experience to experience?
Yeah, I mean, they're all those same mistakes that I saw reading. Things like, the story. You don't know what the story is 30 pages in, 20 pages in. Right. You haven't met the main character. You don't know who the main character is going to be. Scenes that go on too long and don't get buttoned. Here's the end 3 lines before, but the scene drags on for another 3 lines, or starts 3 lines earlier, things like that. Lack of momentum, lack of pace, tone that's all over the place. Saw a lot of that kind of stuff. Rules, I have like 5 basic rules that I kind of try to follow, but they're kind of silly. Number 1 is no bookends.
Oh, bookends meaning like a prologue, epilogue thing?
Yeah, bookends meaning like an old man sitting down at the fire, let me tell you a story. Right. And then coming back to, let me tell you, a guy at the end.
Bookends.
Like Titanic, that awful, little film that nobody saw.
But that bugs you.
Really bugs me.
Right.
I think you can always take them out and it means nothing. So that's rule number 1. Number 2 is no bookends. Right. Just for emphasis. Number 3 is you don't kill the dog. And number 4.
You don't kill the dog. That's not figurative. You mean literally no killing of animals?
Yeah. If there's a dog in the film, you don't kill it.
Right. Why do you think people seem to be able to take killing people in movies and not animals?
Good question, right? Right? It's okay if Payback was the great example, that Mel Gibson film. It's okay to see Mel get the shit kicked out of him and all these people get gunned down, but they had to reshoot the dog not getting killed because killing the dog, everyone freaks out about. Right. I don't know. It'd be a good...
I'm not a pet person, so I don't know.
Not a pet person?
I'm happy to kill animals.
You're happy to kill animals? Yeah. Mainstream America ain't.
Well, that's why I'm sitting here.
So that's 3. 4 is saving the kiss till the end, that last moment.
That's a good one.
And then 5 is feel free to disregard the above 4.
Okay. Well,
if you need to. Because at the end of the day, there's really no rules.
Right.
You know, it's just what you feel is a good story, and take all the experience of all the films you've seen and all your life experiences and put that in as objectively as you can.
Right. Can you think of a film you've liked recently that's kind of broken the rules, or that
broken the rules? Pulp Fiction broke tons of rules. I loved that, just in terms of structure and character and time and all that kind of stuff. Who else? Usual Suspects, I thought, broke rules. You know, you think Keaton's going to be the main character there, and it's not.
Right.
You know, you think who's the villain, all that kind of stuff.
Could you ever see yourself writing one?
I'd love to write one. Yeah,
a real breaking script yourself.
Yeah, breaking rules. You know, I've often thought it'd be great to write a film, a serial killer film, a cop chasing a serial killer you've seen 1,000 times, and have the serial killer kill the cop halfway through. Right. And who you're left with. Well, I'm left with a serial killer for the rest of the film. Right. Well, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? And seeing how that comes about. That's breaking a mold. Right.
And that still excites you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The most exciting, innovating storytelling, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, where are we at today? You know, trying to be on that cutting edge. Not just for the sake of being on cutting edge, it's just because it's interesting. Right. It's different. You haven't seen it before. I think audiences are craving originality. I know I am, you know, in films. Just something different, you know, that I haven't seen before. That's at least worth the price of admission. Right.
Speaking of things you have seen before, if you get an offer to write a sequel or a remake, do you...
I stay away from sequels pretty much as a rule, and I generally stay away from remakes as a rule. Now, having said that, I'm doing a remake of an old Western film called 3:10 to Yuma.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah, but it's a great movie. It's a great idea, but I think it's flawed in its
It's so of its time. Yeah.
So of its time, right? And I think there's room for improvement on it, basically. And the director is Jim Mangold, who I think is fantastic, and so I agreed to do that because I just thought, well, here's a great idea. I think we can tell it better. Right. But remaking classics, remaking great films, I just don't.
It seems to make more sense taking a hidden gem that you could execute better today than...
It's a hidden gem. It's not High Noon. Right. It's not Shane. Right. It's not The Searchers.
No, really only film buffs know it.
It's 3:10 to Yuma. Right, exactly. So, so yeah, I tend to stay away from them as a rule just because I think, you know, I don't know how you'd make it any better. Right. Like, you know, I wrote on Poseidon Adventure, did a couple, you know, like, because every writer worked on that.
Right.
You know.
It's true they have a list going that's bigger than the original passenger list for the Poseidon.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But like, you know, had they approached me for that first, I would have said, well, yeah, you can have this great preacher, and you know, he can be all about, you know, save yourself and don't wait for God. And you can have this and that. And I would pitch them the film. Right. You know, I would say, well, it's got probably more high-tech engines. Right. You know, but why would you change that? You know.
Who would you make Shelley Winters? Who would you recast?
I would still keep that. Kirstie Alley. Give her a call. I mean, it's such a great moment. You cry when she dies. You know, why change any of that? But of course, you know, they don't remake; they reimagine. And it's, you know.
And sequels, you're not interested. Why?
Again, because it's been done. You know, I think the question that doesn't get asked enough in Hollywood is why. Right. Why are we doing this? And
aside from the financial.
Well, that's it. Yeah. That's usually the why. Right. Well, we made a lot of money. Let's make it again. And there's really nothing wrong with that. Right. It's just, I don't think it's a very inspiring place to come from. You know, I'm working with director Baz Luhrmann right now on a big romantic epic in Australia. And when I first flew down there to meet with him about it, we spent the first 2 weeks discussing why. Like, really starting off with what made you want to get into films. And we spent 2 weeks talking about what made us, why we like movies. Right. Which leads to the big question, why make this film? Right. You know, and it's just phenomenal. Yeah. You know, to see that kind of, you know, attention to detail and that kind of foundation. Because that's the right foundation to write a film, to build a film, to spend all this money and all this time answering that why right from the beginning and sticking to it all the way through.
And you feel that people seem to sometimes brush past the why.
Most of the time, brush past the why. Or as a why that's like, oh, we have this technology now, we can do it better. Right. Is that a why? Is that really a good why to tell a good story, to spend all this money and all this time? And you know, sometimes it works, most times it doesn't.
Does it feel like there are more sequels and remakes in the air lately than there have been in times past?
It does, yeah, it does. I mean, it's certainly since the blockbuster happened in, you know, 75. Right. You know, that they've made this kind of money, well, we can make this again. That's certainly an attraction that wasn't around in the 50s and 60s. So yeah, the more money these films make, the more they're going to want sequels. Right. Because it's a money-driven business, like any business, and it should be. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. But I think that's as a result of that. And it's the same thing with books. Get a big book. Nothing wrong with that. You know, it's a big crowd. they're going to make all 7 Harry Potter films, you know it.
Right.
You know, there's so much money there.
Do you find the business side of things kind of infects your process a little bit in a way? Or are you able to keep the two things separate?
Yeah, it works its way in. You know, you try and keep it away, and that's why you try and have good people surrounding you to help you keep it away.
Right.
So you just focus on the art of it. But, you know, it's a business, and you're a businessman at the end of the day. So it does infect your decisions.
Right.
You know, certainly kind of, there's so many bullets flying out there, really. And it's a matter of dodging the bullets in the sense that, you know, you might take a job at a studio that the studio falls apart the next week. Right. You know, and you gave up this other job for that, and, you know, well, if you took the other job, you would have dodged that bullet. Right. You know, so it's,
but you could drive yourself crazy.
You could drive yourself crazy. Yeah. So yeah, you can't rationalize it too much. You just kind of got to trust your instincts and go with your instincts, and hopefully you dodge as many bullets as you can, because there's certainly machine guns flying out there.
Right. After you know, your own work has been either rewritten or adapted by a director or a cast, when you go see the finished product, what do you measure your own success in the process by? Just
the audience.
The audience?
Yeah, yeah. If it's an audience that wasn't a part of the film.
Right.
You know, the test screenings, things like that.
Right.
I always go to like the local theater to see it and just sit there and watch people and stuff like that. And the box office is a huge measure of that. You know, people are going back to see it again and again. I met a girl who'd seen Pirates 36 times.
Oh, that's great.
At the theater, 36 times. You know, regular teenage girl. She wasn't crazy, but she'd spent, you know, $360 on the film. Right.
Did you tell her who you were?
Well, she knew. That's why she was telling me. Yeah, someone had.
Oh, she didn't just run up in excitement and go, I've seen this movie 36 times. Right. So you got a groupie there.
Oh, well, I don't know. I think it's more of a groupie of Johnny Depp in Orlando.
But you were there and they weren't.
I was there. That's right. So yeah, it's really audience reaction. Our audience is getting a kick out of it. Are they saying it's a good film? Are they telling their friends to see it? Right. And are they having a good time? And so you sit in the theater and you listen for the gasps and the shocks and the scream and the laughter and the this and that, and you see if they're into it or not. That's, for me, hands down, that's the only measure of success.
Does that make you proud?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes you proud that, you know, Michael Mann or Tom Cruise or these great people come on and do it, but it's not until you sit in that theater with, you know, the people who are paying, shelling out their hard-earned money for your movies that are really getting the kick out of it and really getting their $10 worth that I feel really justified and proud and happy.
Did you watch Collateral with an audience too?
Oh yeah, sure. Several audiences. Yeah, and it was great to see the reactions and great to see the shocks and hear that. And I did a lot of Q&As about it. And you know, the Q&As, you have people telling all their things and all the things they read into it and how excited. And that's also fun too, and you see it that way too.
Do you find that screenwriting gets easier for you the more you do it, or as the years go by?
I wouldn't say it gets harder, it doesn't get easier. It's the same set of challenges every time. If anything, there's a challenge not to rest on your laurels, not to think that you know more than you did, not to get comfortable in any way. There's the challenge to deliver every single time out of the gate. Every single time. Never phone in anything. Because I think if anything, there's a challenge to keep it good, keep it going, because certainly you've got that when you're hungry and starving and looking for food on your plate, you've got that hunger. So keeping that hunger, I think, is probably the biggest challenge. But as far as the physical actions of doing it, it's just as hard as it ever was. And I think it always will be. Learning the rules, forgetting the rules, remembering the rules, knowing the rules, you know, all that kind of stuff. Just, it's hard work, but it's a hell of a lot of fun.
What's next for you? What are you working on now?
Well, I have a new film coming out in October called Derailed. It's a thriller with Jennifer Aniston and Clive Owen. Okay, now that's the independent film. Well, it's Weinstein's. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be their first film actually that they're going to release. So that should be a lot of fun. That was a book that I adapted. Okay. That was great actually. That was such a great experience. Only writer, you know. They bought the book. They hired the writer. They hired the director. Hired the cast. Made the film. Released the film. Never ever happens. That's pretty good. But that's the way it should happen. It never ever does. It's like been 2 years since I adapted the book. It's ridiculous. So that's coming out in October. I'm working on a film with Baz Luhrmann, I think I mentioned, the big Australian Gone with the Wind, basically. I'm doing the Western for Jim Mangold, 310 to Yuma. Adapting a Tom Clancy book for Paramount, Without Remorse, one of my favorite books ever. And doing the Spy Hunter. Cool. Well, we want to thank today's subject, Stuart Beattie, for being here with us. My pleasure, mate. We want to thank you for being here as well. Please remember to check out the other great interviews in our series. And remember, it all starts with you. That next written by credit could be yours. I'm Mike DeLuca.